Hey everyone, it's Jeannie here, and today I am joined with the director of the upcoming film I Can, Tyler Sansom. He's also a minister, and I'm just so grateful for how the Lord has used him to bring this story to all of us. Thank you so much, Tyler, for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Talk about well, I guess let's start with you. You go from pastor to filmmaker. How does that happen?
Yeah, I kind of went from filmmaker to pastor to filmmaker actually. So I've always wanted to make movies since I was a little kid, and ended up going into ministry. But our church has been doing online ministry for a long time, like before it was cool when COVID hit, and it was kind of a natural progression for us to go from doing online services and Bible studies to using media online to reach people to feature films. We made our first feature in 2017 and it was terrible. I'll never even tell you the name of it, but we've gotten better each time. And this is our first like nationally released one, but all the while I've still been a pastor on staff at the church. So the church has really kind of jumped on board with this whole movie making process.
So tell us about your connection with the family, with Caitlin and her dad, and just how that came about. Because from what I understand, they were members of your church or visited your church, and that's kind of how this whole thing happened.
Yeah, they've been members at our church for about pretty much the whole time I've been here. So about 10 years.
Wow.
So I've actually got to watch Caitlin grow up quite a bit, which has been really, really cool. And I approached them about doing this story because one of the things that we like to do with our media ministry is tell stories of redemption from within our congregation.
Mm.
And they said no 3 times. Um, which, if when you see the film, you'll understand why. Imagine your biggest mistake that you've ever made being put on a big screen in states all over the country. And so it was a brave thing for them to finally say yes. But they still worship here with us. They've been lockstep with us throughout this whole process. And it's been fun being both the person telling their story and their pastor.
That's beautiful. And I thought it was very interesting that you merged because Caitlin's story alone, like honestly, without kind of giving backstory of maybe the guilt that her father felt or her parents felt is inspiring, right? And
Mhm.
that's like amazing how a player with one arm goes on to be all-American, in college softball. Like that's
Mhm.
really amazing and inspiring altogether. But then I think to put in the other story with her parents and just how her life began, with her parents feeling guilty with how they conceived her. I think that that's real life,
Yeah.
and we all have things that we do feel that way about. So maybe we didn't have a child that was born with, one arm regular and the other one not. But, the enemy loves to hold things over our heads to make us feel guilty. But the film shows, and Amy Caitlin's real story shows how God works all things together for good. Talk about that. Was that kind of something that you really wanted to bring forth to audiences?
Yeah, when I first heard the story of the mom and dad side of it, I knew Caitlin, and I've even played pickup basketball and things with her in the past. So I knew she was a phenomenal athlete, and always in my mind, I thought that's a great story. Let's tell that story. But when I found out the mom and dad part of it, I knew there was something deeper there that could relate to a lot of different people.
Mm-hmm.
And what I didn't know is that the parents had never even told their daughters what had happened. So, in order for us to make this movie, they had to sit down with the whole family and tell the full story of how
Wow.
they met and conceived Caitlin, which was a big step for them. But it relates universally. We may not have a daughter that has one arm. Many people don't have that, but like every person has something from their past that they have guilt and shame for. We've all done something in our past that we're not proud of. And I'm excited for people to hear that with God, they can overcome that. And in fact, he will not only overcome it, but he will use it for his kingdom. He loves taking stuff from your past, redeeming them, and then using it in the future.
Yeah, I there's an important conversation that happens in the film where the character of God I think is really described beautifully. And to be honest, I'm a pastor's wife. And, we sit down with people all the time. Doesn't matter how long they've been serving the Lord. And still there's the false perception that God is punishing them.
Hmm.
Um, and it's almost like, the things that the enemy does, God gets, it's God doing it as a judgment. And I thought it was just important for you to put that in the film. As a pastor, as a minister, can you talk to really wanting to make sure that that was clarified?
Yeah, one of the weirdly, one of the key demographics of our church ended up being people that are coming out of either prison or recovery.
Wow.
Um, Online ministry has taken us a lot of different places, but a few years ago, we had the opportunity to get on the tablets of every inmate in the state of Indiana, where we're located. So
Wow.
every prisoner in the state has access to watch us each week. And what has happened is after they get out of prison, a lot of them have actually moved to our congregation. So we've got like, imagine a student section at a football game. Well, we've got like a convict section at our church. And so having that demographic at our church, I see people all the time that struggle with that idea of God is punishing them because of their past mistakes.
Yeah.
And so I counsel people a lot as their pastor about how that's not how God works. And the more that I kept hearing that story, the more I realized that the story of the Pavies really needed to be told, so that other people could be freed from that as well. So I'm hoping that people all over the country are freed from that idea that God's punishing them, so that they can move forward into the future that God has for them.
That's amazing. What's your hope from here? This is a film that you were able to, pull off that you're proud of. And it's really good. Like I said before we started, I loved it. I enjoyed it. Where do you guys go from here?
I think we're going to keep telling people stories. Um, I heard somebody say once that you can argue a lot of things, but you can't really argue with a changed life.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of life change that we get to see here at our church. Thank God for that. And I want to continue telling those stories of how somebody was one way, Christ entered the picture, and now they're a totally different way. And you don't have to know everything about the Bible to see that in that person. And so I think it's really powerful to be able to tell those stories as a start of a conversation to lead people to the kingdom.
And the best stories are always a true story. I feel
Yeah.
like the best films anyway are always a true story. As a minister, do you find that this form of ministry, this kind of media, entertainment form of I was gonna say, do you think it's a ministry anyway? Let's start with there because
Yeah.
I know for my generation and those that follow, entertainment is so influential. But from a pastor's perspective, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't be making these movies as the church if we didn't believe in the power of them. There's a lot of people that will never step foot inside of a church building that will go watch this film simply because they like softball or they like sports or whatever. And if they can see what God did in one person's life, then we at least have an opportunity to share the gospel with them. Whereas we may never get to share it with them if they don't step foot in our church. And so I definitely think this is a new way of doing ministry to a generation that is like very digitally native now. They are watching content all the time on their phones or tablets or whatever. I think the church should have a voice in that.
Amen. Well, Pastor Tyler, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us about ICANN or about what your future endeavors are?
Sure. The thing I'm most excited about the film is that we're actually giving 100% of our theatrical profits away.
Wow.
We want to be able to help as many people that need to hear about overcoming as possible, like Caitlin did. And so 100% of our profits are going to be given to organizations like Christian Alliance for Orphans and other organizations that help kids in the foster care system or disabled children.
Mm.
And I'm really excited about that. I think not only is this film a ministry with what it says, but
Mm.
we wanted to kind of put our money where our mouth is and make it a ministry with our finances as well.